Hello, everyone. This is Victor Dominguez. Thank you for joining us today. I greatly appreciate it. I am the Executive Director of Business Performance USA. I've got 3 partners with this endeavor. You'll meet them soon online here. And I just want to thank you again for joining us. We're going to be jumping in here. And today, of course, our subject is marketing ROI, 5 key links for 5 key stakeholders. The truth is, though, that everybody has a hand in marketing's return on investment. And while this is focused on marketing, much of the practices we'll be talking about today really relate to getting your senior or executive team working on the same page, collaborating, being accountable, being transparent, clearly defining their intent, and so on. So the applications to our processes today are really quite broad, and we encourage you to think openly about how these processes can really affect your organization. If I may, I'll take a quick moment. I'm over here on the left, Victor Dominguez, co-founder of Business Performance USA. I'm currently serving as Executive Director. We have a wonderful and brilliant partner, Cynthia Stewart, a co-founder, and Dr. Jeff Stewart, co-founder. Dr. Jeff is on the webinar with us today. We are 3 individuals who believe that we want to share our best practices that we use for our clients and deliver them to the public, because we believe that when businesses succeed, our communities succeed as well. So we want to make this event worth your time, and please, we encourage you to ask questions using the chat feature, or of course the questions feature. Whichever one is most intuitive to you, just go ahead and ask us a question. That's really the best way for you to get value out of what we do here. And we have really diverse audiences on the webinar today. We have private sector, public sector, and nonprofit sector, churches, organizations, you name it. And so ask us to be relevant to your situation. And of course, you can always ask us after the webinar by emailing me at victor@businessperformanceusa.org. And of course, our website, businessperformanceusa.org. There you go. Today, we're talking about hands-on marketing, really. And it's a marketing program that will do 3 really important things for your organization. You can generate business intelligence, develop customer lifetime value, and of course support sustainable growth year over year. ROIs generally is all about business intelligence, proving that when somebody first comes into your world, you can identify who they are, and through the entire prospecting stage and sales stage and customer lifetime stage, you generate a lot of business intelligence on that individual. If you do it correctly, you can really learn what the requirements are of that individual, be them a customer, a client, a constituent, a parishioner. It really varies. But that business intelligence really helps you keep connected on the ground level to who you are serving. And that's a lot of what the Marketing ROI program will do. It's really not just a budgetary issue. It really goes far beyond that. Now, to conduct through Marketing ROI initiative, you really need to link the 5 key stakeholders. And this is classic. These stakeholders reflect a private sector for-profit business. The classic key departments: marketing, sales, customer service, IT, and finance. But the thing is, most often these departments aren't interconnected in regards to collaborating and generating a marketing ROI, because the truth is marketing needs support if they're really going to generate the numbers that are of value to the entire organization. The links, of course, are on the right: intent, collaboration, accountability, transparency, and being authentic, if you will. And we're going to describe how those really work for you. I'm just playing with controls here for a second, so thanks. But the big deal here is that you really need to cultivate a mindset that learns from and adapts to new business intelligence, because if you set this up right, you're going to be streaming a lot of business intelligence. That means data into your organization. So here we've got a stakeholder responsibility matrix. Now, this matrix is really part process and part culture. The reason for that is because successful outcomes require decision-making responsibilities that cross over from one department to another. We're not going to go deep into this, but you can see the departments on the left there. And on the top are the 3 key goals for an ROI program: business intelligence, customer lifetime value, and again, sustainable growth. What you'll notice on the right-hand column, though, is if you do this well, you will really be setting up a system where you can confirm the return on investment for all of your units: marketing, sales, customer service, IT. You can track this because you can track a customer from the very beginning contact all the way to a lifetime customer, and everybody plays a role in that. Now, the problem is, and I say this because I've worked with over 80 companies in my lifetime, both as a consultant and as an employee. And there's at times a lot of collaboration and teamwork between these departments. At times there can be, shall we say, a measure of dysfunctionality between these departments. Sometimes you get siloed departments, and people want to define their space and not allow influencers or even decision makers to come into their world. And a quick example here is that for an ROI program, marketing obviously needs to build customer profiles. That means contact information from first contact to qualified leads. Well, when it gets into leads, they need to collaborate with sales, and there's a gray area there. So marketing really does need to collaborate with sales when they're generating leads, and that needs to be an open and an accountable relationship. Sales, of course, needs to always anticipate customers' needs and collaborates with marketing to do so. A customer, with their first contact with the company, has specific needs, but 6 months, 6 years into that relationship, those customers' needs, requirements, and desires constantly change. And that means you need to communicate to them, be proactive, and that requires really a collaborative interchange between marketing, sales, customer service, IT, even finance. Of course, IT has a critical role, for instance, developing and evolving internet mobile engagement channels. They can't really do that without collaboration of customer sales, marketing, and so on. And then lastly, what's unique on this slide is that finance, I'm including on this team now, they don't have a day-to-day role per se in all of these activities. They can, of course, assist with reporting channels, and it's always critical to check in to finance in the beginning of your ROI program and get really clear as to what kind of data you can generate and how you can track that to a customer lifetime profitability model. Pardon me. I do have a question, and we do encourage questions, so thank you so much. The question is, who is responsible for regular reports or exception reports? The truth is all of these departments are responsible. If we're talking marketing ROI, marketing is the key to generating these reports, and they're going to typically use tools such as Google Analytics, what's happening on their website, digital engagement marketing tools, email campaign tools. So marketing generates all of the reports of who is in the active, live, broad database from both suspect, prospect, customer, repeat customer, client, and advocate. That's a long list, but marketing should be able to, in time, really show who is operating in those worlds and how often they interact and connect with the customer. But I'll jump from marketing all the way over to finance, and this is my point just a few minutes ago, that finance needs to be able to set up an understanding of tracking every customer and being able to report on the profitability of every single individual customer or client. Now, if you're a consumer packaged goods company, that's a little different animal, but most companies are not CPG companies. Okay, they're not Johnson & Johnson. That's not who's on our call today. So reporting starts with marketing. They do the brunt of the work, but finance has to be involved in that too. Another question, shared responsibility has to lead to well-being, right? Or you'll lose the clientele. I'll get to that. I read through that question quickly and apologize that you couldn't understand my verbiage on that, but we're talking about a shared responsibility for the customer relationship. And if you don't have a shared responsibility, that's going to be a problem. quite simply said that just because marketing hands over a qualified hot sales lead to sales, it doesn't mean they're out of the picture. None of these departments, and certainly the top 4 there, are ever truly out of the picture when it comes to that customer relationship. And if you really want a true return on investment for your activities, these 4 departments need to be collaborating. Quite simply, for instance, sales, well, I'll start with customer service. Customer service has on the front end relationship with the client or customer, and they learn things from them. It's really ideal for them to record and append the customer client profile so that marketing sales really knows what's going on with that prospect, and so sales can anticipate new products and services for that individual. In other words, to maintain a customer responsibility program, shared responsibility program, you need to communicate in a looped fashion. You need to constantly loop back your communication so all departments can understand how that customer is evolving through your products and services. I'm going to talk quickly about intent, if you will. The way to start off this project, and again, we're talking about the 4 key links. Intent is the first one. You can think of intent as strategy, quite simply. But you need to define what you're going to measure and how you're going to measure it and what is actionable. A lot of people will ask marketing for data which isn't necessarily actionable. Marketing likes to track Google reports, and that's critical, and you can really get lost in the minutia of all the data that is generated by marketing tools, both marketing and multimedia channel tools like Net Results, Marketo, Pardeo, HubSpot. You could flood yourself with it. So you got to ask yourself, what do you want, and is the data you're collecting directly contributable to the acquisition and retention of a customer? If it's not, you don't want to spend your energy, at least in the first year, on that data. You want to put your efforts towards the acquisition of customers and how do you keep those customers. After you build that infrastructure, then you can start bringing in additional detail. Our policy is want not, waste not. If you don't want the data, don't waste your energy to collect it. In simple terms as that. The next slide is an example of this, and what we're talking about in terms of data you can collect. We've got 4 stages here. And the first stage takes place you can start seeing results in 30 days, and that's really, really important. Everybody wants to see results from marketing and sales immediately. And with the right tools, you can start collecting new leads and prospects right away. You can track web traffic, track downloads, engagement quantities, and so on. That can happen right away. It takes more time, about 9 months, to start understanding brand perception. And then year-over-year results, you can start, of course, tracking what are incremental sales above and beyond these initiatives. Now, it's really hard to parse out where all of your sales come from. So it's not a perfect science, and to make it perfect, you have to spend a lot of time. But you do want to understand what your incremental sales are year-over-year. And conversion ratios, cost per lead, that's entirely possible. But it's going to take some time to get there, not just to collect the data, not just to have your content marketing systems work, but also to train your staff on how to use these new tools, how to collaborate with each other, how to solve problems and whatnot. So I'm just checking for questions here. Quick question. How do you know which data is actionable by the customer or for the customer? Do you use personas? Which detailed attributes linked with business tactics? These are a lot of questions. We may park some of those at the end of this at this webinar, but we also encourage you to contact me and make this relevant to you. What's your situation? The best way for me to answer these questions is to relate it to your particular business or organization, church, nonprofit, for-profit, doesn't matter. And let me get into your particulars by understanding what your situation is. But what is actionable? Actionable data that you can collect from a customer is when you do content marketing and you offer a white paper or a blog on 6 different aspects of your products and services. When that customer is selecting one particular blog or white paper or infographic or even a pricing chart, whatnot, that's an obvious indication of what they're interested in. And then you continue to send them more content like that. You want actionable data that signals what your customer's buying cycle stage is and what their interests are. And yes, we do use personas when we collect data. We want to identify and collect data which signals to us if an individual falls into one of 4 categories. Those 4 categories are decision maker, which is obvious, influencer, which is very important. We always want to talk to the influencer. The 4th or 3rd persona is financial. This person is just, give me the numbers, what does it cost, what's our return on investment? They're not always a CFO type, but they're financially inclined. They just want to deal with the numbers right away. And then lastly is a technician, an individual that's going to say, all right, well, how does this work? What about our legacy systems? What about training? And so from decision maker, influencer, financial, and technician are the 4 personas we build, and we want to bring in data which fills up those buckets so that we know who we're talking to and what their primary interests are, what their sales objections may be, if you will. We're going to keep moving because we're going to keep this webinar at 30 minutes. And the best way to get more substance out of this is to get our white paper, Marketing ROI 5 for 5. It goes into these topics in greater detail. And from that, you can start formulate a real action plan. You'll understand the landscape and understand what needs to be done to really generate, once again, business intelligence, customer lifetime value, and sustainable forecasting and profitability. Of course, collaboration is a big deal. So when you talk about 5 departments getting together and working together, let's just say that doesn't always happen in an organization. People like their silos. They don't like people getting into their space and sharing decision-making responsibilities. But the truth is, if you're really going to have a sustainable growth path, you do need that level of collaboration. And the best way to do that is, again, to get them to understand that everyone shares in the responsibility of that customer relationship. That is really, really key. IT has as much responsibility for that customer relationship as sales, marketing, customer service. You got to help them understand that and why and what their exact influence is. So also you need to connect this initiative with something bigger than their individual department goals. For instance, incentive programs, sales is sometimes incentivized to bring in pure sales, but those sales may not be directed at the ideal profitability model. In other words, they may be targeting any customer when you really want the ideal customer. You need to really look at your incentives and your goals for these departments and get them aligned, and when you do that, you're going to really see magic happen, if you will. So collaboration is a big deal. And by the way, the bookmarks in the bottom ask us. This is just encourage you to ask us questions after this. Email me, victor@businessperformanceusa.org, and we can answer these questions for you. Collaboration is a big deal. It's part process, but it's also part culture. And that's not always an easy thing to do, is to get people on the same culture, but we believe it's critical. Ability, of course, is where this is starting to get tricky. I mean, for instance, marketers typically cringe when the CEO or C-suite calls them and says, darn it, we need you to show us a marketing return on investment or we're going to slash your budget. That's a lot of pressure, frankly, and it's pressure for marketing because half of what we, and I'm a marketer, what we do is A/B testing. Half of what we do is going to fail by definition. And you're going to be exposing those reports to the entire C-suite. Well, there needs to be an understanding there of why failure is actually a good thing, because it leads to an improvement, and you need to show them the process of why your campaigns that failed have actually lead you towards success. So accountability is a big deal, and I could go through why sales don't like being accountable. CRM systems, for instance. IT always has people button into their world, particularly marketing. But finance is really a critical one too, and finance is often left out of this. They're the one that want the numbers. They have to report themselves, but you need to bring them into this team so that they can be accountable too. And asking them to help set up reporting models and channels is the first way to get finance to be accountable for the process. They're not just the end game here with finance. Most importantly with accountability is that sometimes when you get these departments coming together, you get the finger-pointing game. Well, it's not my problem, it's IT's problem, but that simply isn't going to work. You've got to have an organization with a healthy culture which identifies problems as opportunities, not problems as something to beat somebody over the head with. That's really, really critical. Problems are a good thing with the right mindset. Transparency is maybe the epiphany, the pinnacle of why these things don't work, okay? People have a hard time being transparent with their departments and operations, and it is often the biggest cultural obstacle to an effective ROI program. You know, with the dashboards in place these days, there really is no place to hide. So we see as clients when we roll out a CRM program, for instance, which forces transparency to what sales is doing. Salespeople do not like CRM programs. They don't like having that transparency into every single prospect and customer relationship because it shows how attentive they are to that relationship. This is an uncomfortable truth, but probably the number one reason MROI initiatives fail or any cross-functional initiatives fail is either non-compliance with practices or downright sabotage by its participants. That's not to say that you don't have good people working for you. I'm sure you do, but if you don't have the right culture and mindset in place, this transparency aspect is going to be pretty uncomfortable. Moving on to authenticity, I'm going to check for a couple of questions here. What is the cost of noncompliance internally and externally? Well, that's a good question, and thank you for asking that. The cost of noncompliance for any initiative, frankly, is like an economic factor. It's not just, it's not missing out on this opportunity, but what could have been accomplished with that energy, that human and financial capital that could have been, applied elsewhere. So every sales organization will admit that opportunities have slipped through the cracks. Okay, for instance, so the cost of noncompliance just comes right down to top-line growth, but it also comes down to bottom-line preservation because it lacks the opportunity to create efficiency in collaboration with the company. So cost of noncompliance or downright sabotage by participants is an indication that your company isn't as effective as it possibly can be. It's a waste of resources. And ultimately, if that continues, good people may leave your organization if they're in an environment where sabotage to new initiatives is either accepted, sometimes even rewarded. That's not the way to keep good people within your organization. And that really closes it up. And I said we're going to close this up quickly. And I see some additional folks that have joined our group, and we greatly appreciate that. If you did come into this webinar halfway, you can always watch the rest of it online. Best way to do that is become a member at businessperformanceusa.org. It's free, and we've got over 65 webinars you can watch. The best thing to do is what I always advocate is to watch a webinar and then come online to our board, if you will. Let me see if I can jump over to that. Here is a snapshot. This is actually live of Business Performance USA. This is my personal wall. And this is a really good place to just engage me. If you watch a webinar, come onto this wall, send me a letter, and send me an email, a message, whatever channel you want, And we can discuss your questions right here. We can start a forum if you want. We can pick up the phone call and talk. So if you have come into this webinar halfway through, fear not, because you can still watch the whole thing on demand, and you can engage us even more importantly through Business Performance USA. So I'm going to swing back, if I may, to any additional questions. And there's a lot of questions today, so I really, really appreciate that. Here's another one. So, quote, so is there regular reporting on the return of human capital too? Boy, that's a really, really interesting question. So let's break this down, and I see the audience is still hanging in there, so I appreciate that. So let's talk about human capital. Your organization, your church, your nonprofit, all of these different companies represented today, you're working with people. The people are your greatest human capital by far. We at Business Performance honor the intrinsic knowledge within human capital. And so this isn't an HR initiative. This isn't a key performance indicator initiative, but what is generated out of this can be put into key performance initiatives. And the truth is that that's how, people's level of cooperation will be readily apparent. People's ability to interact with others and accept ideas from outside, marketing and IT, for instance. Marketing wants new IT applications and whatnot. Their ability to collaborate and deliver on a new tool on time, on budget is an indication of how well your human capital is working. But this isn't exactly a KPI initiative per se. And I'm going to check for a few others. How can you tell how frequent tire kickers from real prospects? Okay, that's an interesting tactical question. Let's pull back, and the question is, how can we tell prospects that are just tire kickers from real prospects? This gets into again, of course, marketing return on investment. It's a level of engagement. With a prospect that's going to turn into a customer, you see a steady pace of engagement. And you use your digital marketing tools to track that. These days, customer engagement can be phone calls, face-to-face interaction, printed material, but mostly it takes place online, from email, text messaging, social media, your website, your landing pages, your blog posts, and whatnot. You need a tool to really track all of that digital engagement, and you can see an individual pace. For instance, for our clients, we track from email open to clicks to landing page visits to how long they're on the web page, what videos they look at, what downloads, and downloads are really important, and what blogs they read. All of that is kind of scary and trackable these days. Scary because it's kind of Orwellian. But you will see a pace of a prospect going from 3 stages, really. They start to look at general awareness. What is possible? What does your company offer? What does your church offer? What does your nonprofit offer? To what we call proof of concept. Okay, so you're saying that you can do this, but prove it to me. And so you start offering them blogs, white papers, testimonials, information that proves that what you say is true, and people need to see that. And this can happen within 3 minutes, or it could happen in 3 weeks. It depends. Then if they're just tire kickers, they're going to drop off at that stage. But a true prospect is going to start looking at pricing and rate sheets and things like that. If you have pricing models on your website and you can track the individual going there, it's an indication they're not just a tire kicker. But it's the frequency of engagement, the pace of engagement, and the level of detail and time spent on the website that distinguishes tire kickers from real prospects. And I could go on more, but I'll move on. So one last question and I think it may be from one of our partners here, Business Performance USA really only tracks frequency of interaction with special touch points. That's true, but that's exactly what I just said earlier, that, that we can track, because we want to serve our members, so we track what our members are interested in and how often they touch points with us. So on that, I encourage everyone on this call to quite simply contact me, if you'll be so kind. And I can just simply deliver this white paper straight to you. I can, I'm talking about this white paper right here at Business Performance USA. Send me an email. I'll send you an email. This white paper will take you through all of the processes we talked about on this webinar in greater detail. And we can get you on track. And think of it two ways. Do you really want a marketing ROI program, which certainly is important? Are you getting the return on investment? Is your marketing initiatives up to snuff and performing well, or are they not? We can have that kind of discussion with you as well. If you have questions about how to get your executive team or executive leaders, senior leaders collaborating, because we touched on that, that is a really, really big deal. For instance, we go out and talk to senior leaders and ask them individually, do you really understand the mission and the value propositions for your organization, your nonprofit, your church? And it's remarkable how inconsistent those answers are. We ask 5 different people, 5 different senior leaders. We might get 5 different answers, possibly 3 or 4 different answers. So what we talked about today in terms of coalescing your senior leadership within the same game plan is a big, big deal. And that could be an entirely separate topic too. Feel free to ask us about that. And then next week, we are having another webinar. I'll be hosting and presented by Emily Shoup. Emily Shoup is an expert in organizational development, coaching, training, and really shifting culture so that people buy into a shared purpose for your mission. So please join us next week with Emily Shoup and understand again how to bring your leaders together and on the same page. So having said that, a quick note, yes, Emily is particularly adept at millennials and Z-Gens. Z-Gens is the latest, the newest, the hottest generation. It's a unique generation, and they're setting trends that, frankly, somebody like me has to learn and follow. I'm 56 years old, and I learn from millennials and Z-Gens, and we encourage you to learn from them too. So having said that, we're going to close out this webinar today. Thank you for the dozens and dozens of people that joined us, and thank you for all your questions. Let's make sure you follow up, and again, talk to me, Victor at businessperformanceusa.org. And I thank you for your time.